Ian, Dave, how you doing, buddy?
I am well, and we have convinced yet another person to join us. Peter Holderith, staff writer with The Drive. Welcome to Apex Adjacent.
Thanks for having me. I liked your intro. That was tight.
Yeah, there's those podcasts that like make their guest wait around for like 10 minutes while they just talk about like them doing laundry and shit like that.
Not play a song or something.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Not here, Peter. Not here.
Terse hellos. Terse hellos is what we do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Straight to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight to the no point is where
Straight
we
to
like
the
to
casual conversation that may or may not be something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to get right into it. To that point. So I am very excited because I've been following along with your cheap electric go-kart build on Twitter and on The Drive. Can you just give us a little bit of background on like how you got this idea, why, and how you got started and like where it is now?
Yeah, sure. So it's like me and my friends, or at least one of them and my brother, were all into cars. So like the ideal is like, you build a go-kart, you race them, you have fun with each other. And we did try and do that with like no plans like 3 or 4 years ago. And, it like didn't go well. And we couldn't decide what engine to use, like, all this stuff. It eventually became a boat that sank. So there you go.
Okay.
That's how it went. And
like a literal boat that actually sank?
Yeah, we turned it into like a Mississippi paddle steamer.
Was it like a legit go-kart chassis that you tried to make float, or was it like a homemade thing?
It was it was strictly, we had no plans, strictly homemade. We welded a bunch of stuff from Home Depot together. The welder was bought in the same purchase as the metal. That's to give you an idea how much planning it was.
Yes.
And it just didn't work. Like, we couldn't key things we didn't plan and didn't figure out. So eventually we were like, well, I forget what we couldn't get working. It was like the throttle. It was something really trivial. And we were just like, well, we don't need a throttle pedal if we make it a lever, and then it can just be a boat. Okay. We had some insulation foam laying around, and we made this. Actually, my brother, don't want to take responsibility because my brother did most of this. And he made the hull, and it sank on the first trip. And we just pulled it out of the water, and it's in our garage at home now.
That's amazing.
So that was I was like, well, so I have a degree in industrial design. I don't have a degree in journalism. And I was like, well, I feel like I have I have the mental faculty to do this. I have to, I hope I went to school for something. So I was like, well, let's see how I can do this. And I wanted to build a 4-wheel go-kart, and I wanted to actually build a hybrid go-kart, which I still want to do.
Mm.
And, but a lot of things are in common with building an electric one and building a hybrid one. And I started doing a cheap one because, first of all, I feel like that's the big barrier to entry for electric go-karts. It's really hard to find one that will fit a lot of people, that you actually want to drive and buy. And even when you buy one, you can't tinker with it, which is half the fun. You can't turn the current up or down. You can't change batteries. It's it's all locked out.
Yeah.
It was pretty lame. But Amazon will ship it to your door in a day.
Right.
Which is unbelievable. It shows up in the next day in a box.
Yeah.
I can't compete with.
They have a guy at the end of your driveway, just with the box ready to go.
Literally.
Go.
Littering. Yeah, exactly. So that was well, I still want to do this, and doing it cheap as a prototype is good because you don't spend much money on the prototype, because prototyping costs can really quickly get out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I built up the first one, and you have to do 3 wheels because the scooter motors, excuse me, the hub motors are the best way to do it, because you read the article, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You don't need all this stuff that you need for a 4-wheel go-kart, and it really adds up in a serious way. And so I got the first one working, sort of. The gas pedal on that one is still a knob, because I couldn't get any of these Amazon Chinese gas pedals, throttles, to work. So I just used this servo tester as the throttle. And that was it's kind of just because you have to one-hand it. It kind of not really great, not ideal. But there was a lot of things I feel like I got right. And I was kind of vindicated at the end of when the article got posted. Because if I can make this thing cheaper and people have suggestions, I will fucking do it. You know? Because it's I want it to be more accessible, to a degree, where I said, I don't want to make it out of wood, stuff like that. I want to be people to order all these parts and just bolt it together. And So I feel like I got a lot of stuff right because all the comments were like, "Oh, you should make the front two wheels hub motors." It's like, yeah, like yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Like I agree. It's just like it's beyond not really in the spirit of this build. So like getting all this right, I was like, I think the whole thing was like probably $750 or $700, which sounds like a lot, but it's one custom object that anyone can order.
Yeah, that didn't exist before.
Right, exactly, which is like cheap for what it is. And the most expensive part is the custom bent metal pieces, which if you order them in volume, like 2 go-karts would be like $550 each, and 5 would be like $500 each. But I just can't spend $3,000 on go-karts.
Right.
I don't have the space, nor do I have the customers as it sits.
You mean your end goal isn't a spec racing series for this?
Well, that would be a lot of fun. I don't think you want to race these. Like the 3-wheel. Well, so this one had a pretty wide wheelbase, front like track, and I built it, and I couldn't get through like the door out of my apartment. Like that's like the first thing I always saw in design school that I was so smart when I said shit like that. Like, oh, can I get through a door? And then I myself forgot to do it.
It's like the airplane fuselages that can only be so big because they have to fit through like tunnels or on trains.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, there was that whole story with there's a town in the Netherlands, I think, who's like furious with Jeff Bezos because they had to dismantle a bridge to get his fucking yacht out of the bay.
Oh my god! Yeah,
I mean, Jeff Bezos. I'm sure it was a very similar sentiment.
Right. He also had to order his yachts in bulk just to keep the costs down.
He's like, if I could get 2 of these, like the same, you have no idea. But so this new one has a narrower track. It's like 34 or 33 inches, so it'll fit through a doorway. You can just roll through a doorway. That between that and shortening the wheelbase by an entire foot, it's pretty tippy. Putting that huge. Did you guys see it put that huge 2 kilowatt-hour battery on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That actually like helped it be less tippy because it has all that. It's like 27 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That is beefy.
That's the one behind me. The first one is at my parents' place. I brought it up there because I didn't have space for it. This one is a little bit easier to store because it's shorter.
Okay.
But I'm still testing and developing this one, so I'm keeping it around for now.
So how does the throttle pedal work now? Is it like what is it attached to? Because I know you like 3D printed it or whatever, right?
Yeah. So they sell like in a bag.
Oh, look at this! He's for the audio listeners. He's reaching behind him for the actual. Like a pedal that he printed, yeah. You also have an emotional support box of cables.
I have too many box of cables, too many cables in general.
Yeah.
If you need to transfer data between 2 TI-85 calculators, I have got you covered.
Yep. You need an original Game Boy Connect cable? Done. Yeah.
Those must be hard to come by these days.
Not in my house.
I remember when I was a kid. Remember there was a Mario game that they had like a printer for? They made like a little Game Boy printer.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember that. I got to a sequence in Mario and it's like you can print this shit out. And I was like, what? I was like 8. And I'm like I demanded to be taken to GameStop so my dad could buy me the Game Boy printer. And they were like, we have no idea what that is. I'm like, what the fuck? I've never seen one. But I just to see how it would work. I think it's just a cool device. But anyway,
yeah, Mario's telling me I can print it. I want it.
Literally, it's like you can print this out, man. I'm like, fuck.
Press the Control P.
But all the pedals on Amazon are like, this is like the best one I've seen. And I wanted to buy a pedal because I don't want people to 3D print like almost anything if I can help it. Because that's like I get it's a hobby thing, but like printing stuff is like another level that I wanted to avoid. But I got this, and there was like the signals coming out of it were like the fucking Richter scale. It was like absolutely nowhere. And I was like, well, this was the second one I bought, and I've seen people making them work. So I was like, well, what the fuck? So after all that, I'm like, I'm not gonna just do the knob again. Like, and that's bullshit. So I just decided to make my own pedal. So it's there's actually a servo. It uses the same servo tester as the original car, but it's programmed to work within a narrow range. So it's like like 30 degrees is like 0 to 100 on the cart. So it's like that pedal is just pushing a lever that's attached to the knob on the servo tester.
Yeah.
And I just super glue that in place. I love super glue. So I just super glue that right up. A lot of the stuff is like that. Like, I love double-sided foam tape. It's like the fucking best.
Right.
Especially for this stuff. It's like, oh, where am I going to mount, like, the little inverter or speed controller, colloquially is what they're called when they're this small. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. I can just foam tape it on. And it's like, oh, isn't that like a bad solution? Like, shouldn't you screw it on? It's like, it's cheap. It stays on there. It's like, it's a great solution.
Yeah, and bumpers are held on with it. It's fine.
Yeah. I had the battery on there originally with foam tape. It was fine. I had that little light on my cart on with foam tape. So I like to test at night because there's less people around and people won't throw rocks at me. I feel like old-timey inventor. With the guy who invents a lawnmower, it's like kids would throw rocks at him.
So that was going to be one of my
witch. Burn him.
That was going to be one of my questions. Was what are your, because you're in an apartment complex doing a lot of this testing, and presumably it's your apartment complex. What do your neighbors think about this when they see you like in the elevator with this thing?
I generally try to get out when they don't see me. When I was testing the first car, a woman came out. And she was like, "Oh," she like apologized, like she interrupted something. Like, oh man, it's kind of weird. And but now it's like I usually test at night so I live next to like a diner, basically.
Okay.
And there's this huge parking lot outside. Well, it's not huge enough, not big enough for me to get to my top speed. But it's pretty big, and I like to test out there at night because there's not a lot of people around. Like when the diner's open, it's like I'm gonna get hit by a car,
right?
So it's like I put the light on there, which actually my our company is like big on doing like TikToks now, and that came in like a camera kit to make TikToks. But I do hydroponics too, so I have like fucking grow lights around, so I don't need this little TikTok like thing. I have plenty of lighting, and for herbs, I don't do drugs. People always ask me that. Oh, like you're growing weed, man. It's like, no, like basil mostly.
The good stuff.
Yeah. Best.
Yeah.
And but so I just put that on there. It's really fucking bright. And it's like just enough to allow me to see and to prevent being hit by a car. That's just foam tape right on there. It holds up fine. So
yeah. I love it. I love foam tape. I love those zip ties that have the pre-cut holes for screws. So you can like
I've never seen this. Really?
Oh yeah, they're the best. That's how I have like everything mounted under my desk. Like
really?
all of this stuff just enables like you to do stuff in a more diverse way, right? Like,
yeah.
It's enabling.
That was the idea with the aluminum extrusion too. Yeah. It's like because you'll see on there that eye bolt just bolts right up to a T-nut in the extrusion. So and I use that just to tension the brake cable, so you can move it forward and back and adjust the angle of the brake cable, and that tensions it, which saves like a lot of trouble. A lot of other stuff is mounted with those too. The whole rear axle is mounted with just T-nuts, and they hold up great. And as a result, the seat mount is mounted there too. You can move the seat back and forth, so it can.
You can move it back and forth. Okay.
Yeah, the seat's adjustable, so you can have people on the other cart that had a 4-foot one. It was better because it was better and worse. The other one was narrower, so you could have someone as big as like 6'4", 6'6" on there comfortably, which is pretty cool. But those people are really heavy. And there was only one channel to hold the seat on. And I had my friends up for New Year's, and they were all driving it around, like having fun. And my friend was taking a video, and my one friend who's like 200 pounds, like turns the corner, and the seat just snaps off. that unmistakable sound of metal snapping. Yeah. And he just like falls off. There's actually a really good video of it I should post on Twitter. We were all slightly intoxicated, but it was indoors. It was very safe. Yeah. We were wearing multiple sweatshirts. It was extremely kosher.
It's the sound that says the party's over.
Exactly. Yeah. I bolted it back on and we kept going after that.
That's amazing. That's great.
Safety squints were engaged. Yeah.
Exactly. This one has 4 bolts to keep the seat on now. So I'm thinking bigger people. And the old extrusion was, I was like, you read the article. It was like, I showed Tad's instructor that. He was like, it doesn't look very stiff. And I was like, fuck you. Like at the time, I was like, fuck you. Like, this is my project. Like, And then I tested it that was before I even tested it. And there's the extrusions right there.
Yeah.
And
in case anybody doesn't know. Yeah.
I tested the cart and I was like, my brother was taking videos of me driving it, and around sharp corners, you could see the extrusion like a fucking like popsicle stick, like just bending in the middle. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
And then I wrote the article on like the first one that was like, wasn't done yet. I was like, oh, it was a little weak in an area I didn't expect. And someone in the comments was like, intorsion? And I was like, no. Like yeah.
So why aluminum rather than steel? Say, is that cost or weight or both?
I think these extrusions I think are mostly made out of aluminum. I don't think I haven't seen steel ones or I haven't looked for them. So steel is like weathers is the first thing, which I don't like. Like some of the parts on this cart are just mild steel, so they weather, which just kind of looks like shit. And it's fucking heavy. Like a steel extrusion, the equivalent weight would probably weigh like 20 pounds more just in material.
Yeah. I would assume you'd get more flex as well, right?
Yeah, it depends on the steel, and that's the one thing too. Is like when I ordered all this stuff, I didn't know anything about like there's steel, and then there's like treatments for steel, like case hardening, all these kinds of different methods that it can make like difference between like like a knife and like the pieces that bridges are made out of, or like just regular plate. It's a huge fucking difference.
Right.
Like spring steel and everything, they're all different. I had no idea. It's steel. I just ordered it. Like my first axle, I got on it and just bent like a fucking like
like a wet noodle.
Yeah, literally. Like it just like I sat on it I was worried about it too, and I just let it sit like assembled for a few days. I don't need to test this. And then I was like, if I'm gonna use this, like I have to test it. I sat on it, was like just like wee, and I was like, fuck. So that was not ideal, but you live and learn. That's why they front axle is an extrusion now, because it's so much stronger.
Right.
These extrusions are so strong. The weight is like marginal, but they're cheap. Like just the extrusions on here were like less than $100.
Yeah. Oh wow,
and that's what my racing sim's made out of.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Nice.
And the smaller sections are even cheaper. Like I think the extrusions on the first car were like $45.
Yeah,
it was like ridiculous. But like the thicker 15 series, which are like 3x3 inches, 1.5 inch base, are like marginally more expensive, but they're a lot stronger and there's a little more internal volume, which is important for like I want to put the batteries in the extrusion.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so you've gone through a couple of different iterations, even just recently on the batteries too. So you had at one point you did have a bunch of batteries, in series in the.
Yeah.
So are these all lithium ion, or what's the chemical makeup of these?
This is lithium iron phosphate. So generally it's like lithium ion has the best capacity in terms of chemistry, but it's limited by output current and the cell itself, like the way it's packaged. So these lithium iron phosphate cells are threaded on the ends. So you can make it like you can series wire them like so easily. And it's rigid. It's like I don't have to worry about having end-to-end connections. I would have
like spot welds breaking off and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that's what I'm worried about. Like if I have this inside the extrusion and a spot weld break and something shorts, like it's inside the extrusion, so it's not gonna it's not gonna burn me immediately. Like I'll notice it. Like probably gonna be smoke pouring out of the back of the thing or something. Right. I'm not gonna get hurt, but I won't like. There's that the peace of mind is not great.
Right.
It's not a fun time.
No, but like that's a good point because like dealing with like a gas car that like something breaks on is different than dealing with an electric car and current that something breaks on.
Like as long as there's no gas involved, like engines are like very safe.
Right.
But, like these batteries, like they're just sitting around and they can like get fucked up.
Potential energy, Peter. Potential energy.
I knew very little about electricity before I started this, and I feel like I still don't. But like doing it, like everyone says, like, oh, if you have to learn the hard way, like you're like a moron. I must be a huge fucking moron because I learned the hard way is like the best way for me to learn something.
Definitely.
I was like, these cells are called 38 120s because they're 38 millimeters in diameter and 120 millimeters long. And all batteries are generally, even the lithium ion ones. So an 18650, it's 18 millimeters.
Yeah, I'd never thought about that.
21700 is 21 millimeters, 7 millimeters long. So, but the overall length, because it has the threads and like the threaded inserts, is different. So I just took up calipers, and the great thing about these batteries is what I was saying before is lithium ion. 18650s, like the high capacity ones, can't output much amperage, which you need for something like a go-kart. And the low capacity ones put out a lot of amperage, but it's like a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And lithium iron phosphate is like that times 10. So it's like these are only like 28 watt hours each, which is not a lot. But a single cell can output 200 amps.
Holy crap.
This right here could cold start a car. It could crank over a car. It can supply that much amperage, which is like nuts for an individual cell. Yeah. So I put my caliper across the leads, and it immediately got red hot. And like those things are like, luckily they were I don't know if they're different metals actually. I have no idea. But they didn't weld. Sometimes that can like cause like an instant like spot weld.
Yeah.
I was worried my calipers would get spot welded to it instantly, but luckily this is not enough voltage. Generally it's like anything under 48 volts won't kill you, generally. Unless you're like, like bathing in the ocean, you get out and immediately touch like a 48 volt battery. You're gonna be okay. Like people are not that conductive. And so there's no chance of this pack hurting me. I say that, but I won't touch both leads.
Right. I was going to say, yeah. 200 amps doesn't mess around.
Yeah.
No, not. But the reason why I was trying to like put cells in the extrusion like on SolidWorks, I was messing around. Like, how do I put these in here? Like, just with the diameters of the cells. And the 38120s, these lithium iron phosphates were like a little bit bigger than like the internal like bounding circle in this extrusion. And I was like, I gotta know. Like, is this just a tolerance? And it was just a tolerance. The cell stack slides right in, like just a little bit of extra space, like just enough that I could 3D print something or put electrical tape around it to like take up the slack.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they're big cells. The limiting factor is I can only fit like 6 cells in there, which is not enough voltage. So I bought a boost converter, which will boost my, I think 3.2 volts per cell times 6. What is that? It's not going to be enough. There's the math. Not enough. I think it's like 22 volts nominal. So I need at least 36. And so I bought a boost on Amazon, which either will explode in fantastic fashion or will do what I need. So I'll put that. That's the boost converter. That one should have broken. And so I had to return that one. But another identical one is coming in. Apparently, like they'll do it. They just get hot. And like it'll draw more amperage from the battery.
Huh.
I don't know if it will work. I don't know how regen will work. Like putting energy back into that. So when I test, I'm just gonna turn regen off because it sends 5 amps back into this thing and just fucking blows up. Like I don't know what's gonna happen. So it's a big experiment in terms of power electronics.
Well, so the hub motor came from a scooter, right? So how do they handle all of this, and like what's the difference, I guess, between what you would see on like one of those electric scooters and what you're trying to do here? Is it just like you have less weight to play with and so less battery capacity, or is the voltage different as well?
So the voltage is different. So generally these electric scooter batteries are rated at 24, 36, or 48 volts. And that's just like, you've heard the hose analogy for electricity, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, the size of the hose is the amperage, or the pressure is the voltage, and like that put together, like the water volume is like the wattage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the more voltage you put into a motor, generally, the faster it will spin. So I'm running this motor now as the battery is a 48 volt battery, but I'm just running it at 42 volts. I don't actually have a charger to get up to 48 volts. So, but that's fine for this motor. So it says 36 volts, right? But the cells, which are 18650s, which it's designed to run off of, 3.6 volts per cell, 10 cells in series provides the voltage. But that's only the nominal current, or nominal voltage. The peak voltage, which is what they get charged to, is 4.2. So it's perfectly fine to run at 42 volts.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between what I'm doing is I'm capable of providing more amperage than this motor. I could probably melt this motor with the amount of amperage I can provide, but it's like the battery just won't accept it. Like in the software, VESC tool, that controls all of this, like controls the inverter, all of it. You can adjust the amperage up to like, this VESC is only 50 amps. But if you had a 200 amp inverter, you could run 200 amps this motor. It would just make a lot of, even like at 40 amps, it just squeals and just doesn't want to do anything.
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, like, there are absolutely limitations to what the motor will do. I think I never, it's a big mystery. All these things, it's like they all come. I'm pretty convinced this one motor, they all come out of the same factory, but they get drop shipped by like 100 different people on Amazon, AliExpress, and eBay for like a range of prices. And they all have like slightly different. Oh, like you can run 10 amps with this, and another listing will say 20 amps, another will say 15, and some of them say 24 volts, and some of them say 48. It's like you don't really know.
They're
So it's
like,
well,
we said can. You can.
yeah, right. Yeah. If you want. It's like, and you ask like the seller, and like, they don't, at least on AliExpress, they don't speak very good English. So it's like, they don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So it's like, you're pretty much left in a corner. So you can just pretty much run this shit until it gets really hot. If you stay under 48 volts, you're not going to get electrocuted. I'm running it now. I've just been gradually like working my way up and learning more about this software. So it's like, I had this huge fucking battery, 2 kilowatt hours. And if you have a small battery, you get what's called voltage sag, which is like the voltage goes down into load, which affects your performance. Obviously, this is a 2 kilowatt hour. It's a Ford Escape plug-in hybrid module. It's for a fucking car. Like,
yeah. How did you come across that? I saw that too.
So there's a lot of websites that will sell you stuff like that. Like, but they're effectively not recyclers is not the right word, but they're resellers. So they'll get a pack or get like those Model S cells, for instance, are very common battery modules people sell. And there's a website I use called Battery Hookup. That's really good.
Okay.
And they will just, so that one was $250, I think. They used to be pretty common. They're getting less common because they're so good. Because typically those modules are like 24 volts. Like, so there's a bunch of individual cells in there. And in that case, they're prismatic cells with like square cells, which is pretty uncommon. Usually they're cylindrical. Teslas are all cylindrical. And, but it's a 48 volt module, which is great voltage because you can just buy one module and have like the voltage you need for a scooter or something.
Right.
Whereas like a Tesla module, like a Model S at least, is only 24 volts, but it's still like 5 kilowatt hours. But I would have to buy two, like $1,200, and then I'd have like I'd have to put on my lap at that point because they're huge.
Right.
And I would have like 12 kilowatt hours. You could probably travel 100 miles in this thing. I wouldn't want to do that, but you could do it. It's like even with this thing, it's probably 15 or 20 miles of range.
Yeah.
Which is like pretty ridiculous. Like
you could make a little trailer with just batteries.
Yeah. I mean, you could. I mean, it would not take much. You could buy a solar panel, like if you lived in Nevada, probably like a 4x8 like solar panel, but that could provide enough continuous wattage to keep you going indefinitely. On this car. Yeah.
Okay. I do want to loop back to the name of the website that you mentioned because I've never heard of it. Battery Hookup.
Battery Hookup is a really good one.
It's not a single site for electricians.
It's an excellent idea, though.
I never thought of this. Sharp has attacked this guy. Jesus Christ. There's other sites like that too. So this one called 18650 Battery Store, which does like more like individual cells, and they're pretty good.
Yeah.
You can get them on eBay sometimes. Do not buy them on AliExpress. AliExpress, they just straight up lie. It's like they'll say like, so on 18650, like the little cells will never have more than like 4,000 milliamp hours. Pretty much ever, maybe 4,000 or 5,000. And but on AliExpress, like, oh, this 18650 is fucking 20,000 milliamps. like what is it, 20,000 milliamps? Like, yeah, 20,000 milliamps. It's like, what's the output amperage? You're like, normal. It's like 10 amps. You can do whatever you want with it. It's like, really? And it's like, I'm like, I know enough about electric vehicles. I'm like putting this in my head. I'm like, if that was true, this like has the same energy density as like fucking gasoline. It's like, this is like, what am I seeing here? Like, it's just ridiculous. So it's hard to find. That's why sites like this exist. It's because it's hard to find good batteries. Yeah. Like, it's like, and batteries, like, if a battery was used in fucking like, Massachusetts, for instance, it could be in pretty fucking bad shape because it gets temperature cycled so much. Like, I was tweeting the other day, like stream of consciousness, like, the California EV batteries, they're like fucking room temperature their entire lives. Like, no one's pressing these things. They're FSD all day long. They're great cells, and the new Tesla cells with the 4680s, you can't even get your fucking hands on because like they're encased in foam and all this shit.
Right.
But like, to my point, it's like there's a lot of good EV batteries floating out around there. It's just a matter of getting them and like reselling them. And that's what Battery Hookup, and I forget there's other names of sites that do it. But Battery Hookup is out of like Bensalem, Pennsylvania, and where I've been before. So I was like, I know this place exists and it's real, and like they have customer service, and so it's a great site for sourcing stuff like this.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's you talked a little bit about the controller. So, and I don't really understand exactly what the controller is doing, but basically it's just regulating, like it's taking the input from your throttle pedal to say like, this is how much we're turning the dimmer switch. And then it's making a decision of like how much we're going to allow from the battery to go to the motor, correct?
Yeah, right. So when I started, there's like different types of motor controllers, which is very confusing. But generally, these are colloquially they're called BLDC and they're called VESCs. So this is actually kind of interesting. Like, so electric vehicles all use inverters and speed controllers are effectively the same thing as far as I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And but they're all like unique to automakers. They're all locked up, which is why EV swaps are so hard. As part of it. But there's this one guy, and everyone was like, "What are we gonna do? Like, how do we make electric scooters in our garage?" And there's this one guy, I don't know who he's from, named Benjamin Vetter, who was like a fucking genius, and he invented this software called VestTool, which is I think it's the only open source like motor controller like this.
Oh.
And after that he figured out this software. Guy's like a fucking genius, like
nerds with free time, dude. Nerds with free time.
Christ. And it's free software. It's like, bro, like, please charge me for this.
Yeah.
And but he figured all this shit out, and now there's a bunch of companies that make what are called VESCs, and they're electronic speed controllers, virtual electronic speed controllers. And what it does is basically they're all 3-phase motors, so there's 3 wires coming out of them. And what that just means is that there's 3 sets of magnets or poles, not poles, but like there's three things get charged up and down and makes the motor rotate. There's 3 wires coming out as a result, is how I understand it. And that so the electronic speed controller just says, it takes DC voltage and it says, okay, this magnet at this time, this magnet this time, this magnet this time to make it spin. And it gets more complicated. Like, so this go-kart is, it's a serious fucking rabbit hole. But the bottom line is there's different ways to control it. And this go-kart still needs to be pushed off manually because it doesn't have sensors to tell. Needs like a foot of roll because it doesn't have sensors to tell,
like a Hall effect.
Exactly, like a Hall effect or an encoder to tell which direction it's starting to begin with. But there are some apparently newer VESC you don't need sensors and you can do it. There's like I don't know how this shit fucking works. It's like it probes it with voltage and it can tell like which way it's like what do you like who figured this out? There's so many things with these motors where it's like who the fuck figured this out?
Right.
It's like unbelievable. Like you just scratch the surface. And it's like it gets to the point where you run out of people on YouTube explaining it.
Right.
Well,
it's honestly it's sort of surprising to me that it's that hard to do because like electric motors have been around for a very long time and really precise electric motors have been around for a very long time. So it's sort of surprising that when you put it in a hub of something that it's all of a sudden a lot more complicated. But I guess it makes sense, especially from from the encoding perspective, because I guess normally you would have an encoder on the other end of an axle or something.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So some of these motors do have encoders. So this one has Hall effect sensors. I just can't figure it out. There you go. There's my level of knowledge revealed. I try to figure it out all the time, and I just don't know what like the labels are not. You understand why people buy kits for shit like this? So this is labeled. These wires are not any color in particular for any reason. It's like, it has a plug. What is this plug even for? It's like clearly for a scooter this came off of that. I don't know what it is.
Right.
So it's like, like it takes a lot of effort to figure this shit out. And again, like some of these motors, so the tricky part is so the way it's controlled is called FOC. It's field oriented control. And that was actually only figured out in like the 70s because you need computational power, like at least on a very rudimentary level to figure it out.
Okay.
And before that, EVs were mostly like brushed motors, which are, but basically like mechanical valve. And from an engine perspective, it's like mechanical valve control. From an electric motor perspective, like I don't know what it would be called, but they effectively didn't really require a controller, as far as I understand, or a very rudimentary one. Whereas with this is like making like sine waves and shit, like it's doing all sorts of funky things. So it's actually pretty complex, and it was only invented relatively recently, as far as electronics go.
Yeah.
Let me tell you where my knowledge is at. Just as so I watch those AVE videos of that weird Canadian dude taking apart power tools. So that's how I know about 18650s. That's how I know about Hall effect sensors, stuff like that. We have an old Auric vacuum, right? That has like a great motor, right? I was replacing the bottom casing on it because it was cracked, and so the roller was always off and it was throwing the belt. I screwed up the wiring when I not documenting it correctly when I was taking it apart to replace the case. I had to buy another Auric on eBay. I basically bought a parts car, but like a vacuum, okay? So that I could look at the wiring on that, not touch it, and then do the same thing with the 3-phase motor on the old Auric, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like the fact that like you are doing all of this without like a pre-existing thing, like you are operating at a modular level and establishing this, like, yeah, you might be learning the hard way, but dude, you're tooling around in a diner parking lot and ripping shit, and it's admirable as hell, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What really made it seem possible for me was that there's like all these people online that a lot of this is focused on electric skateboards and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people like talk about doing these swaps. And I've actually spoken to some of these people in person. And when you probe them for information, because like you are curious about it, you need to know specific things, they don't know. And I was like confusing. Or you see someone setting something up, it's like, why are you putting those wires? It's like, I don't know why. It's like I hope it works. And I was like, well, I can fucking do that. It's like, and it's like, well, most of these things, like, you're probably not going to break it. Like, everyone's like, oh, you're going to fry something. It's like, probably not. I mean, I haven't fried anything, and I'm pretty. I don't know what I'm doing.
I mean, there is definitely. I would think, especially with the controller, that there's definitely a danger of letting the smoke out.
The big risk is when you plug it into a wall to charge. Right? When you connect to miles of someone else's copper, that's when you run a risk.
Yeah, that when I got a battery, a cheap one off of eBay. So the basic battery I started with, it's way over there, but was for a hoverboard, or like the common 36-volt batteries, like the things kids cruise around on.
The things that are definitely not allowed on airplanes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll tell you why they're not fucking allowed on airplanes. I want to buy one from a reputable source. Because if you don't, I bought one and it was like, man, this is cheap. Like the one I bought for the first car was like $50. This is like 20.
Right.
Well, so I bought one that was $20 on AliExpress and never showed up. It got shipped to like Kansas and I never saw it. And so I some act of God, I got a refund. But the second one I bought was like a little bit more, but I was like, this looks more reputable. I think it was on eBay. And I get it, and like the voltage, I read it, and it's like 10. And should never go below like 26, 24. Okay, like let me try and charge this a little bit, see if it changes its mind. I don't know how batteries would work. It's like all chemical. It's like, who figured this out? So I plug it into a 42-volt charger, and it's like the battery charger goes red and then goes green immediately, like it's charged. And I was like,
Okay.
And then I'm like, and then it smells like nail polish remover, but I'm not sure if it's a battery at this point.
Oh man!
So at that point, I take it outside to my parking garage and I plug it in out there, and then it gets really fucking hot, and it starts reeking of nail polish remover.
Yeah.
And it's reading like an appropriate voltage. I'm like, I'm not using this. Like, this is ridiculous. So I just put it. This like homeless people like abandon like shopping carts outside my building. So I just put it in one of the shopping carts. I'm like, so I don't bring it back to my apartment. Like, I don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah,
you see all these videos of like
problem now.
Yeah, it's like you see all these videos of Teslas.
Yeah,
like spontaneously combusting. It's like, that's not going to happen to me. It's like, no way. So I eventually did. I was like, I want a refund on this battery. Like, I've sent out like it reads a nail polish remover and it's reading like 3 volts. I had pictures of all of it, and the seller was like, you have to ship it back. I was like, I really don't think that's a good idea. And the guy was like, you have to ship it back. We're not going to refund you. So I did it.
Yeah.
I left it out for like 3 days and it was fine out in the shopping cart. So I like wrapped it up and I was just like, all right, see ya. And they said they got it. So thank God.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, but then I bought, it just goes to show. It's like I bought one on Amazon that was like $60. But it was from a reputable American company. The battery was made in the United States. And it was like, it showed up charged, showed up above nominal. It's like, oh, perfect. I threw the thing on the Go-Kart, and that was my first test right out the bat. It was great.
Yeah, like it's never the cheapest thing is never the best idea. It's always like the second cheapest thing is usually a much better idea.
Sometimes you get lucky with batteries. So that's the other thing when I was talking about battery chemistries is that it's like you all of a sudden get all these parallels between like electric vehicles. it's like Ford and other companies going to like lithium iron phosphate because like, oh, like it's more robust, but the capacity is not as good. And like when you buy individual cells, like you see that it's like, you know, like an individual, like a really nice 18650 that's like 4,000 milliamps, 10 amps discharge, like a great little cell could be like $12 a piece.
Yep.
And these are a lithium iron phosphate equivalent. It's like a quarter of the capacity, but 3 times the discharge current is like 79 cents.
Wow.
So it's like, man, I could build. It's like you get excited. It's like I could build a whole. I could build a pack out of these. Like, you know, it's like you spec out like how many you in series, like all this shit. It's like $50. Like I can just buy this. I can just buy this. Like you know, or like you know, other more expensive chemistries. It's like just fucking you get fucked like with how expensive it is. And these headway cells, what they're called, are only $5 each.
Okay.
So it's like a great deal for what you're getting. And they're so easy to put together as a
And I know that the drawback is that you don't have as much density, so you don't have as much time. But I would think that because the discharge is higher, that also means charging is faster, right? So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's the other thing is like the discharge rate on an 18650 might be 10 amps, but the charge rate is only like 2 amps. And then an EV,
right.
something of an EV manufacturer myself. In an EV, that's like my regenerative braking sucks. It's like that's what you're doing is just charging the battery.
Right.
So it's like on this thing, it's like that's like the ultimate goal. It's like eventually you could replace the mechanical brake with just if you have that much regen. This is like these cells can do 80 amps charging. It's like I can't even fucking get an 80. Forget an 18650. I can get a 21700 off discharge like that. It's like, I'm 80 amps. I'm sure this thing it would probably like lock up the rear tire of this car.
Yeah.
So it's like you know there's pros. You start to feel the pros and cons of like what these EV people are talking about. When they're talking about like, you know, once they start talking about like charge rates and their pack voltages, it's like, holy fuck. It's like, you know, because power is just a function of amperage and voltage. So it's like, you know, Tesla talks about 1,000 volt architecture. It's like, that is fucking terrifying. It's like, what do you need 1,000 volts for? It's like, oh, like this, you know, 8,000 pound disgusting looking Cybertruck.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, and then the amperage is like, the charging amperage must be like, you know, crazy. It's like, it's very interesting to think about the parallels between even something like this in an electric vehicle. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, just like extrapolate it up to to a full size thing is interesting.
Like they can charge like 350 kilowatt charging is like I sketched up a pack out of these cells that I would do for a hybrid cart that's like 3.6 kilowatt hours, which is like 130 cells. And I did all the math, like the max I could charge that would be 4 kilowatts. Which I thought would be pretty good.
Yeah.
But an EV charging at 350 kilowatts, it's like, holy shit.
Right.
What are the voltages and currents involved? Like, that's why the cable is like as thick as my fucking neck. It's like, Jesus Christ.
It's got to work in all weather.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. I will go back. I do want to loop back to the point that you being an EV manufacturer, your cart has a badge. That, in my opinion, makes you official. I got to find a picture of your badge on your Twitter here because, tell us how the badge came about.
It's probably best to look at the end of that story is where you'll find it, I think.
Oh, okay.
The badge was, I discovered a company, probably at the end of the second story. I don't know if this is...
There it is, yeah.
I discovered this company, and this is like, I love stuff like this where it's like you can order low volumes for reasonable price.
Right.
And it's like you can get these custom pins for like you get 25 for like $200, which is a screaming deal for anything custom like that. So I was like, well, I want to build, I'm building a fucking car, like I want a badge. It's like, you know, but if you do it yourself, it's like it's inconsistent. Like, you know, they don't turn out the same. Like the quality is bad because it's like it's you doing it. It's like, you know, I don't know, I'm not qualified to do that shit. It's like this company will do literally anything you want. You send them a fucking JPEG. And like, oh, these colors are okay? Like they tell you colors that they have. It's like, yeah, fine. Yeah, great. And then like a week later, these pins show up and it's like, holy shit.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, and I was like, that would be nice on the front of a car. Because whenever I design something, I don't just do go-karts in my free time. I do other things. Like I like to do little hydroponic machines, other things like that. And whenever I see a product, I'm like, you have such a cool company and such a great name. It's like, why isn't this branded? It's like, this would be so much cool with a brand. Like cars are so branded, right?
Right.
It's like you get like the front and back badge. You get like lettering on the back. It's
on
like it's
the
such
sides.
literally, it's such a cool branded object. And it's like, why can't other products branded like that? I was like a miss. So I was like, well, when I make a fucking thing, I'm gonna brand it. Like fuck, like you know.
Yeah.
Why not? It's cheap.
Yeah. So the inspiration behind the badge. So is it a bulldog?
So this was a family pet who has since passed away named
Oh,
Obi.
that's right. Yeah.
And he was like really aggressive, and his previous owners must have abused him. So he would like have outbursts and everything, but like 99% of the time when he wasn't doing that, he was like the sweetest fucking dog.
Aw.
Like obedient, like just like just a dog's dog. Please fetch, all
Just
the
a
dog
good
shit.
dog.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was like, as a way to remember Obi, Obi, and so what we would do is we were like, he's not firing all cylinders mentally, but we would joke that he's like a secret like billionaire. Like he would show up places like piloting a helicopter, like Howard Hughes, fucking Tony Stark type shit. Like it's like like some children's charity would get like some $1 billion donation, and it would be like, is that Obi holding the check? Like all random shit like that. It's like, and whenever I ordered parts of this car, they always ask for a company because like they assume you're ordering volume. It's like you must be an actual company, which not really. But I would put Obi Industries every time. And I was like, well, I might as well just make it a little more official.
Yeah.
I like the idea of an electric go-kart that is obedient most of the time, but is occasionally very unpredictable.
Yeah. We're not getting 5 nines out of it. Yeah.
Right.
A solid 2.
Yeah.
A solid 2 nines. Yeah.
Yeah. This thing is pretty predictable. It's nicer with a longer wheelbase. I got this thing up to 22 miles an hour.
Ooh.
And it was pretty sketchy. Like, because apparently you're
With
supposed to
no
put a little
suspension.
camber. Yeah. You're supposed to put a little camber in your steering so like it self-centers.
Mhm.
I just didn't do that. And just because it would have been more expensive to manufacture, not significantly, but it's like just simpler if I can get all. It's still the best second go-kart I've designed, so I was like, I'm not going to do that. But I was like going downhill, and I was doing like I think it was faster than 22 because the GPS speedometer has like lag.
Mm-hmm.
But I hit like some crack in the road or something, which is like hitting like a curb in a car when you have no suspension.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like I was all over the place, and I had one hand holding the phone for the GPS speedometer, and the other hand on the wheel. And I was like, oh fuck, like this could have gone worse.
Yeah.
So top speed 22 for now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's smart. Yeah.
So I guess so going back to the control. So I'm like fascinated with the controller thing, but going back to the controller thing. So can you basically program what happens when you're off throttle and moving? Like, so you can either regen or freewheel, and then could you conceivably like have a button to say like, okay, I'm gonna freewheel now, that sort of thing, like a toggle switch or something?
You can program that kind of stuff in. I can't program at all. That's like one of the things that I've tried to learn multiple times, but I just can't get my head around it.
Yeah.
But you can do that. You can program this kind of thing to do that. What I'm doing now is that, so you know what the Raspberry Pi is, right? Like a little single board computer. I bought one of those by luckily somehow
before they went out of control price wise.
Also, there's that Twitter account that'll tell you when they're in stock at certain stores, so you can like jump on it and buy one. So I bought one actually like a couple days ago. Now I was on like this like tick for like single board computers. Well, I have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But Raspberry Pis are nice because they're cheap, and if they break, it doesn't matter because they're $24. So they make a Linux version of this. They make a Linux version of Festool, and you can run Linux on a Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I bought a single board computer, and I bought a little display for it.
Oh yeah.
Just that hat for the Raspberry Pi. So you can communicate with this controller via Bluetooth, but that's kind of like lame. So another $26, and the functionality on Android is limited. So I'm gonna make it so there's even the touchscreens are even coming for this go-kart.
Yeah,
so I can run Festool on the go-kart live and just adjust those settings on the fly and just write to motor and just like go from, experiment with, amperage that I'm putting into the motor, experiment with how much regen I can really do, all kinds of stuff like that, just on the fly.
It's like you're making a sport button, right? Like
literally,
yeah.
Well, you can do that kind of stuff.
That's what I was wondering about, because like they have those. You have those the little shortcut buttons, right? Didn't you have some of those?
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they like the little.
It's like a little USB like little keyboard, and it's just like unmarked buttons or whatever.
Yeah, you just macros it.
Yeah. You can do something like that. So that really becomes interesting in my mind when you do a hybrid. because it's like when I can imagine doing something that would work in my head that I don't need to program, I'm like, man, I should fucking do that. Like with a hybrid cart, like you could just have one of these little PWM knobs, that's what they're called, your servo testers.
Yeah.
And just have a switch in between that, or in between the signal wire and the motor controller. So it's like, if you wanted to adjust the amount of e-boost you get on a hybrid, you just turn the knob to whatever you want, and then just on the steering wheel, hit a button, it'll give you that boost. Which I think is, I have plans for a hybrid car. It would basically be like a small car. I don't like to bench race a lot, but it's like that kind of stuff is so interesting to me, mainly because motorcycle engines are so fucking cheap.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen that super fast Mac guy on YouTube, but he drove a car that was a Nissan Leaf that's front wheel drive, and then a guy put a motorcycle engine in the back of it. So it's basically this, like, and the Leaf had like a shit battery, like it would have been wrecked or crashed, or not wrecked, but crushed.
Scrapped, yeah.
And but when you put a motorcycle engine in the back of it, it's like, well, it's like the easiest way to do it, because it's like the drivetrains don't know each other exist. It's like you just turn off the stability control, and it's like you have this fucking screaming 14,000 RPM, but you can drive it around town, just shut that motor off. You can play with how they interact. It's so fucking cool. I don't know why there are not more performance hybrids. I mean, like cars in general. I love hybrid technology. I think it's so interesting.
Right.
That's what got me into doing this electric car to start. It's like, I want to build a hybrid. The problem is it's more expensive, right? Because you have to buy both.
Right.
But it's like really, really fucking cool. And I really would like to do something like that where I have a battery pack that I can just, like, you know, you can put in like power curves in VESC tool for electric motors and stuff.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like crazy shit. And it's like, I can figure it out. You know, and if I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. And
that's really cool.
Yeah, so eventually that's like my long-term goal here. But you have to learn how to build like a whole fucking car.
Right.
So that's tough for someone like me.
The good thing about the extruded aluminum is, by itself, it is cheap. The cost comes in to the things to connect them to each other and to connect other stuff to it. You've had to custom have laser cut and bent like pieces, stuff like that. So like that's where the expense is. Like these foundational like structural pieces are, you're good there, right? Yeah. But then the costs really start to stack up when it comes to that like that adding stuff to stuff, right? Yeah. Building on that framework.
You could definitely go cheaper again. Like it scales very nicely. It's like the more things you get, the cheaper it is. Like, you know, I say don't build this out of wood, but the new one like has a thicker main spar. You could feasibly do this out of fucking wood, and it might save you a bunch of money. Like, and a lot of the cost too is, so when you buy hardware, you have to buy a minimum quantity, like on McMaster Car, if you're familiar. Yeah. And it's like at that point, you're paying, like, you know, for some things, like the things that made in this picture that made the steering wheel or the steering shaft to the frame. So you have to buy at least 5 or 10, and like I only need 3, but I have to pay for all of them. And I feel like I'd be dishonest if I'm not saying you have to pay for that and the cost. So I have a spreadsheet somewhere, the actual cost, but it's like maybe $150 just in hardware. But if you went to your local hardware store where they like charge you by bulk, it's like you could probably get away with paying a lot fucking less than that. If you had aluminum extrusions laying around, if you wanted to use wood, you fucking could do it.
Like be a Morgan. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And a lot of the flat parts you could just like bandsaw out.
Right.
Like if I sold plans for this, I'd just be like, you could, you know, cut this out of whatever. Like doesn't matter, like the seat mount, like, you know, the foot tray, like all that stuff could just be cut out.
I wonder how many kinds of things you could find at a U-Pull-It yard reliably. Like what kind of other metal piece has shown up on a car that is pretty close to like what you need.
Just make it out of a crash bar.
Yeah, make it out of a crash bar, make it out of a motor mount. Yeah, something,
like,
you know.
I tried so many things to try and get the cost down because I wanted it to be like $500 for one of them.
Yeah.
And you get into this pickle where, well, at least with the bent parts, where you can order one expensive, complicated bent part. There's a lot of things. Or the other end of that spectrum is you can try to design one reasonably simple bent part that does every function on the go-kart, but you just have to combine them like Legos in certain ways.
Right.
So it's like I landed somewhere in the middle where it's like I have certain parts that do a lot of things, but the other ones are just like identical copies. Like the rear wheel mounts could be one part. I could do that in the future, but right now they're just the same part, just mirrored. Like there's a part on one side that doesn't do anything, but it doesn't affect the functionality of it. So it's a little stuff like that you learn. Like buying, if this whole car could use the same kind of hardware, right, with the hardware quantities, it would be cheaper. And I found that really, really interesting, like getting the cost down and stuff like that, which is another reason why I like to do it cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, selfishly, I would like to see a culture of people just disassembling those fucking Lime scooters that are always littering my front lawn.
Yeah, I mean,
and making go-karts out of them instead.
Yeah.
I looked into it because they sell, like, you can on eBay occasionally, they'll sell just like pallets of like Lime scooters.
Yeah.
That are like, they say don't work, but it could just be that like one cell in the pack is just bad or something like that. Like drills fail for that reason all the time. Like one cell is just bad and the whole battery is fucked. The new battery is like $70.
Right.
Yeah.
So they sell that. The good thing about this motor I picked, which not all the scooter motors have, it has an integrated drum brake, which is like huge because that saves so much effort trying to rig up brakes, like do like some sketchy, piece of wood brake or something or drag brake.
Yeah.
So it's like that narrows down a lot. Like the next biggest, everyone's like, why don't you give it more power? Like they're like, I have it amped up to the point where it's putting out more than a horsepower and it's rated for 350 watts, which is about half a horsepower.
Yeah.
So you can juice these motors a lot, but the next biggest motor is like $300. This one is 60, which is a screaming deal. The next biggest one's like $300, and it is like 3,000 watts, which is like 4 horsepower about, which is like way too much for a vehicle with a 3-foot wheelbase.
Yeah, that'd be sketchy.
That would be
sketchy.
death. That would not be a good time.
Yeah,
so
it'd be fun briefly.
Yeah. The first hit, you'd be on a different planet.
Burn bright.
Yeah. All my friends like, when are they going to do burnouts? Like, you do not want to do fucking burnouts. Like, you can flip this thing over like as it is. Like, you do not like, it'll do like 22 miles an hour is like feels like Mach 3.
Yeah.
Like you gotta I remember my friend was like, it seems pretty slow. Like I sent him videos. And then when he drove, he was like, this thing has like just enough power. Like I wouldn't want anything.
That's hilarious.
I take back everything I said.
That was before I got into like all sorts of motor field weakening where you can like make the motor spin faster by sacrificing input current, all this kind of funky shit. That's how I got it to go faster. It's like all these weird motor things you can do that I'm still learning about.
Freaking amazing, man. Yeah,
It's
brushless
incredible.
Motors and MOFSETs and oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Dude, offsets are another one of those things. Who the fuck figured this out?
Right?
This is insane.
Yeah.
Like who is this guy? I want to meet this guy.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Yeah. And then, hey, let's put 2 of them in a totem pole, right? Like, what the hell? Yeah.
And then I was like, I find that so funny where it's like it's like the Elon Musk thing where it's like he's very smart, obviously, about some things, but other things, like this person is probably like, the guy who invented the MOSFET is probably like fucking genius, but he also like, voted for some candidate I don't like, so fuck him to death.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I always think that's funny. Like, there's still people who invent these things, like,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, they have siloed knowledge. They can't they couldn't cook an omelet to save their life, sort of thing.
Yeah, right. It's like
Have to be reminded to take a shower. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like just stupid shit. It's like, wow, Elon Musk seems to know a lot about cars, batteries, and rockets. But when it comes to like Twitter, he's like, what does he say? It's like, the stack is very brittle. I'm pretty sure you're just like deleting shit, man. Like I don't think I feel like all these features putting in, it's like the next day he's like fixes it in like an obvious way. It's happened like 4 times in a row. It's like, take a step back. You should be smart enough to know your knowledge does not translate here. Like you have to relax.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I love siloed knowledge. I love it so much.
Yeah.
That's like every engineer I deal with in school is like that. It's like, these kids, like, they're brilliant in like determining stresses and all these things. And then it's like, I had to do a presentation with one once, and they like didn't have a button down shirt. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have one? He's like, well, I loaned it to my friend who's also an engineer.
Loaned it.
And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
That's amazing.
Like, you loaned it to your friend? And he's like, yeah, like, well, where's your friend? He's like, he's presenting right now. and we're next.
They're hot swapping dress shirts.
Literally. And I was like,
they're like,
why are you making me look like an asshole here? It's like, I'm not an asshole. It's like, you give your shirt to some kid. It's like, if you don't get your fucking shirt from this kid, you're gonna go fucking ballistic. Like, it's like, why do I have to say that? It's like, about fucking silent.
I would want to do a group project with you, Peter. I would want to be on your team. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about siloed knowledge, especially with engineers, because we're both in IT, so like we see this a lot too, where you have siloed knowledge, but your knowledge is so siloed that you don't know that it's a silo. You just think like, oh, everybody knows exactly the same thing that I do, and there's no other knowledge to be had.
That's the fucking that shit now where it's like Gen Z doesn't know how to use modern technology. And it's like, have you ever used a fucking like scanner, copier, printer combination?
Yeah.
It's like pulling teeth. Like, it's like, no one knows. It's like, have you seen the movie Office Space? Like a whole generation of people like invented a joke around that being a pain in the ass. Like,
Yeah.
All they can do is TikTok and charge their phones. It's like, what? It's like, every generation people say shit like this. Like, how could you? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. No, I'm an IT professional. I got roped into doing like a volunteer thing at my kid's school to help them with technology stuff. And like one of the first things was like they had like, an industrial like printer, scanner, fax thing. And I was like, I have no fucking idea. Like I could set up a network from here to Omaha, but like you asked me to fix a printer. And I was like, oh.
So you guys knew what I was talking about when I started going on about Raspberry Pis. And shit.
Oh yeah.
That's okay.
That's like another one of my side hobbies where I don't know how long you've been following my Twitter account, but I like Raspberry Pi projects. I made this little weather orbs device that displays weather in multiple regions on little smartwatch round displays. Really fucking cool shit. And but I had this idea, but I was like, how do I code this? So I'm trying to like modify. I tried to get ChatGPT to write the code, and it got further than I thought it would.
Okay.
But in the end, I just hired some Brazilian guy in Upwork to do it for like $100, and it turned out great. Like I love the way it looks and everything, but if I could code, that would be like next level. But I just can't wrap my fucking head around. I really want to learn how to make PCBs. I feel like I could do that. I need to find a class because I need to ask questions.
Well, I think the thing with coding is like you have to have a reason to do it. At least for me, like I can't,
in a direction,
right? You have to have a problem you have to solve, or something's not going to work. Because like I've tried to learn it just like conceptually before, and it just goes nowhere. I can't do it.
I tried that when I was a kid, when my brain was like like a sponge.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't like everyone's like, oh, what are you in a program? It's like in programming classes, you like make fucking calculators and shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I have a calculator. It's like
right, exactly. You're not solving a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Nice. Peter, this
has been so much fun. But what do you say we play a game before we say goodbye? Yeah?
I'd love to play a game.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So we call this the license plate game. We need a better name for this.
Yeah.
But this is basically like Highlights Magazine. So you're going to get pictures of 3 cars with their license plates blacked out. And then you're going to get the text from a vanity plate, and you have to match it to the car. Okay? So this really rewards gross generalizations about people and stereotyping. We can zoom in and get some context clues from stickers and other things on the car. And so I made this one. Dave hasn't seen it, so you guys are playing together.
All new to me. Yep. So
all right. Yep. This is a great segment. This is like some shit I'd expect to see on like Hot Ones or something. This is awesome.
This was Dave's idea, and it is fantastic. It's so much fun.
You, dude.
Great idea. We've long been fascinated with vanity plates because oftentimes they identify a weirdo that you'd never want to interact with in person.
Yeah, I think the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have bumper stickers on your cars, but I think the same thing about bumper stickers.
I just got like an old opposite lock and like, our podcast stickers and stuff.
I just don't like ones that like state opinions and shit. It's like, because that people who do like put those on, they assume that I give a fuck.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I don't. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, here we go. So I'll pull up the image here, and then Ian. Yeah. So this one's called Mixed Messages, right?
Yes, Mixed Messages. Because I feel like these 3 license plate texts are sending wildly different vibes.
Okay. Than what the car is, or maybe the driver. Okay.
Or just wildly different vibes from each other.
Gotcha. Okay.
Directed at other people.
So up top we have a silver beige Subaru Legacy sedan. Right, we've got a Subaru. We live in Denver. They're all going to be Subaru. Yeah. Then we have a Subaru. What was that? A Legacy wagon.
I think that's an Outback.
Yeah.
You guys took these pictures?
I took 2 of them, and then a listener sent the 3rd one in.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
Then we have a maroon RAV4 at the bottom here, and the license plates are I love you, EYE love you. OMG stop. OMG stop. And then pew pew, PEW, P3W, pew pew, bang bang.
Finger guns. That's what I was picturing.
If there was an electric car here, it'd be easy because they have all those stupid fucking plates where it's
we have so many that are Teslas and stuff. Yeah.
It was the worst one we ever saw was. Did you see it or did I see it?
I think you saw it.
It was it was a Tesla Model Y and it said shareholder, and I just wanted to run him off the fucking road.
Yep.
That's the worst, bro. Those people, I just don't get them. Actually, I've seen what I did like. It was one of my friends in college who worked on a lot of projects together with his one of his best friends, like his high school shop teacher who was gay, and his plate was plug me. I thought maybe it's because I'm his friend, but I appreciated that one.
Yeah, there's some good ones that we run into. There was one that I saw that was just ham, HAM.
We also saw beef.
We saw beef.
Like esoteric or something. Like I like that. Like,
There was one that was beef, like on a Corvette. It was, I loved it.
Yeah,
it's funny.
Yeah,
these are tough. I don't think.
Yeah, so we don't really have many context clues on the silver legacy sedan other than like AutoZone tint that was applied poorly and is really
I did it.
It's really bubbling up. Yeah, everything else looks completely bone stock.
Got a little bit of a dent in the back there.
A little bit of a dent, but you know,
base model. All right.
Yeah.
3.6. Okay. Did they make a 3.6? I don't know. I'm not a Subaru guy. I have no idea.
Yeah. Then we've got the wagon here.
Oh, so that's a Tiger. I thought that was a Keep Christ on Christmas thing.
Yeah. We've got some like what is that a ski company, Ian? That sticker in the upper left there?
Yeah, or snowboard or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's weed when I don't know.
Yeah. Some animals.
There's an AR-15.
I missed the AR. Oh, yep. There's an AR-15. Okay,
great. AR-15 owner from Maryland, it looks like.
Yeah.
Pew, pew, pew on that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking
he's got
that was a Groot.
The badge is Baltimore Ravens badge.
Oh,
okay. Oh wow, that's like a you just don't see it, folks. You just don't see it.
Yeah, it's just a lot to unpack with this individual.
Yeah, jeez. Right? He probably thinks like in an alternate universe, Groot was at the Capitol on January 6th. Oh, for sure. I love telling people Ron Swanson, from Parks and Rec. Oh, he was definitely at the Capitol. Yeah. Definitely. People are like, no, not Ron Swanson. I'm like, look at the guy. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Sometimes when we get stickers like this on a car, like I like to think that it's like a his and hers or hers and his side. Like she likes Groot and crab cakes, and he loves guns and snowboarding.
Really, a his and hers. I like that. That'd be a nice thing. They have to like meet in the middle on some things,
right?
Like AR-15 is fine. But like NRA, you will not put NRA. Like, you can have a gun, but you can't have NRA.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And then the RAV4, do you know what that sticker is? It looks like maybe a tropical license plate. Are those little palm trees maybe?
I think this is Florida.
Ah, Florida. Okay.
Could be US Army.
Yeah, or it could be an alligator driving it.
If it was US Army, a fucking Charger or something though.
True.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I think you're right. I think Pew Pew goes to the silver one in the middle. I think we got to figure out OMG Stop and I Love You.
I used to do academic decathlon in college or in high school, and I was really good at fucking guessing.
Okay. Yeah, what's your gut tell you on these? Yeah.
My gut says I love you on the Subaru.
Okay. I was kind of thinking the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. And then OMG Stop on the Florida RAV4.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Anyone want to change their answers? Do you have any other rationale behind I love you on the Subaru versus the RAV4?
I don't know. So I feel like a Subaru owner would be like one of those people who post on Twitter like I love you, like with like a meaningless something like that.
Right.
Like a RAV4 owner is like, everybody fucking buys RAV4s, who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let me go into the Dave Don't Look folder. Okay.
Taped.
That's what the folder's called. That's how we hide things from each other in Google Drive.
You guys deserve a studio. This is a great format.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
deserve like the whole 9 yards.
Okay, so here's the solution. I've not seen this yet, so here we go. All right, so
1 for 3. You kidding me?
yeah.
Bad news. But you got the pew pew right.
Yeah. So it's like a tropical "I love you, Florida" kind of person.
Okay.
Yeah. Our listener Dana down in Florida sent that in. We love that dude. So yeah. So thank you, Dana, for sending that.
My guessing just fell off. I guess I'm taking it. To be honest, I would just do B over and over again.
I was so excited when I saw. Oh my God, stop! But this was like in the school pickup line.
Okay.
Really?
At my kid's school, and I just about ran into somebody trying to do this. So, but I was so excited.
That's a good plate to get.
Yeah.
I
really liked it.
Yeah. Huh. Nice. Yeah. So Peter, if you see vanity plates out there that you want us to play in the game, you can text them to 720-515-1391. And not just you, Peter, but anybody else. Yeah. So
can I just tag you in them on Twitter? I feel like I'd remember that better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
You can also, and anyone else, you can send them to the DMs on Twitter because our DMs are open.
Yep.
So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Man, Peter, this was awesome. We went a little long, but
great questions.
Oh, thanks.
Some stuff I would want to know if I was doing this. So I really appreciate that. You guys are very inquisitive.
No, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you see some we love go-karting and tinkering and technology, so like this is kind of like the nexus of all that. So yeah, it's super interesting, and I can't wait to see the eventual carnage that results from the spec racing series that you're going to run on.
Well, I did a second one because I originally wanted to release plans. But the first one was not refined enough. I felt like to do that. But this one, I'll definitely release plans for it when the article comes out. So you will be able to order everything to make this.
We will have to make one and bring it to we will have to
take it to autocross.
Yeah.
Right.
I can give you a bass tune and everything you can mess around with. So I mean, software is pretty simple. I mean, it'll be hopefully it'll be easy and a lot of fun for a lot of people.
Honestly, there's a go-kart track here that people can bring people bring their own carts to, and it's like safety fourth sort of place. They would 100% let us run it.
I need a fucking place like that around me because I have a parking lot and like nothing else. Like it's a bunch of people looking at me like I have 6 heads driving this thing around. I need to go somewhere that would be more appropriate.
You need to rent a mall, like an abandoned mall.
Oh, that would be great. I remember once when I was a kid, I snuck into my middle school on a weekend and longboarded through it.
That's amazing.
That's a dream.
So smooth. It would be like the same shit. Just like going through a mall. Oh my God. Right. I want to actually go to the Harvard because I live in Boston. So waiting for the next holiday where I can go to the Harvard campus and just cruise around there. But I don't know if I get kicked out. You
will get kicked out so fast. Campus police officers have nothing to do at the best of times when nobody's there. I can't even imagine.
I got to put the fucking hot tune on it so I can outrun them.
They're going to be chasing you on the weird security Segway. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be like in the fucking touchscreen, like, come on, give me a bullet.
You just have to steal the parts you need from their Segway.
Right.
Yeah, before they use it to chase you.
Pile of shit. Like, oh, fuck. Yeah. That'd be classic. That'd be awesome.
I love it. So where can people find you, Peter?
Yes.
Yeah, if they want to follow your home-built kart shenanigans, what's the best thing to follow along?
I like stream of consciousness post on Twitter every fucking day. I can't help myself. And it's @_bald tires is my account. And my day job is I'm a staff writer at The Drive, where I write about mostly cars all day. If you want to see some more polished stuff, you can go on thedrive.com. And just to plug The Drive, I feel like as a site, we really are fucking everybody else. So in terms of news, features, all kinds of stuff like that, reviews, new car content, we take the best pictures. We're really trying as hard as we can out here. We get good traffic, but we love more loyal readers. So you get stories like this on here, which, imagine fucking Car and Driver running a home built go-kart story.
Right.
That's the other thing too. This is all expense. They are like, this is a story, we'll pay for it.
Nice.
Which is just
Sweet.
which is awesome. So I mean, nowhere else would do that for me. So go to the drive.com if you have like a spare 10 seconds, click on something, anything.
Yeah.
If you want more of this stuff, if you want to track whether I'm electrocuted or not, just go to my Twitter account.
Or arrested by the Harvard campus police.
Yeah, they're not real cops. What are they gonna do? You guys are gonna tell me this car, the last car, you take the seat off in the steering column, which just threads off, and it fits in my car in the back. And this one is shorter and the steering is lower, so I might fit with no disassembly. I haven't tried that yet, but that's like someone said it's like the like Honda City Moto Campo.
Yeah.
Which would be pretty cool. You could like charge it with an inverter, like 12 volts if you wanted to. That would be really, really something else. But
That's so
That'd be
great.
pretty rad.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, if people enjoyed this, what should they do?
They should subscribe to us on YouTube. Definitely Apex Adjacent. Subscribe to us on all the podcast platforms. Leave us a review if you'd like. Texas Vanity plate 720-515-1391. If you want, you don't have to. You could give us $1 a month on Patreon. All it does is get you a link and a listener shout out. But that's it.
Yeah.
And we give the link away from free in every YouTube description. So, you have to go out of your way to give us $1 if you really want to.
Yeah.
We appreciate everyone that does. So do that kind of stuff. Yeah. And definitely follow Peter's stuff for sure.
Yeah. Peter, thank you again so much. Yeah. This was awesome.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. And everybody else, thank you. We love you. Goodbye.